So I had to come back to Florida, and it is ridiculously hot here. Son of a sucks. 1, 2, 3.
See a security.
Look at this security line. Oh man.
And Wi-Fi and yours below. This will allow recording access.
Have a good one. Look at that guy. Okay, I'm now not in Florida, if you can tell by the fact that I'm wearing a jacket. It's not sweltering hot here, but there are mosquitoes. So that could get out of here. No. You go tell your friends. You go tell your friends what happens when you come up here and you try to stop me recording, huh? All I know is that no. Apparently it just doesn't matter if I'm in Florida or if I'm in Nova Scotia. And, got him. Get out of here. Man, this is gonna be the worst with all these freaking mosquitoes. Okay, mosquitoes won that battle, and we are now a couple days later in a completely different area that doesn't have any mosquitoes. Now I'm just worried about the wind, but I think we should be okay. So, let's start this over again. I am not in Florida anymore, if it's not obvious. But I went to Florida to have an exhibition, my first gallery showing at the City Hall of Tallahassee, which is where I'm from. And I thought I would make this video about answering some questions that are common questions for hosting your own exhibition or gallery. Now, I will admit that I am not an expert on this. This is pretty much my first large exhibition or gallery showing, and I hope it's not my last. So, some of the questions are, how did I make this happen? In this particular case, it was just knowing the right person. So in my hometown of Tallahassee, there's an art initiative, art group called 𝐒𝐿𝐴, and they kind of handle different art things in public spaces, such as the City Hall, such as the airport, and different spots around town. And I just happened to know the person that led picking the different artists for those spots. This is Sam.
Sam.
She's the officiator.
The
The leader of this, exactly.
Yes.
This is how it happened. It was you. So when I ran into her over the winter, she was saying that they had a show coming up and they needed someone else to fill in space for it because the other person didn't have enough work or experience. So it just became a co-show, co-host, it was, you know, me and someone else. And that's honestly how it happened. That's one of those times where knowing the right person made a difference. Anytime that you know the right person, anytime that you end up getting something because you know somebody that knows somebody, or any of those stories, it's also because you put yourself in a qualified position that when that opportunity came about, you could say yes to with confidence. So when they asked me if I wanted to be part of the show, I said yes, because I knew that I could be, and I knew that I had enough work that I wouldn't even worry about being able to fill the space that we needed. So that's how that happened. So one of the questions I got asked a lot was, why did I choose the images that I did, and did I follow a certain theme? Now, if I was having my own show, especially a much smaller one, I might print or choose images that all go together in some way. But this show was pretty large. It was 18 pieces from me, and I believe 15 pieces from Wright. So that's over 30 pieces, and his work is very different than my work. Obviously, they commingle enough that they can be in the same gallery, but they're different enough that if I just posted a bunch of stuff from places that didn't mesh with his stuff, it would have been obvious. So the theme that we came up with was weather. By trade or by day, his full-time job is being a weatherman or a meteorologist. Can't actually remember which one he is, so Wright, if you're watching this, sorry, it's one of the two. So a lot of his stuff focuses on different weather things, clouds, nightscape stuff. So what we did was we chose to do a theme of seasons. Now, he didn't really have any winter season stuff because he lives in Florida, and I kind of filled in that gap, and we used nightscape stuff to fill in that gap. But for the most part, out of the 18 pieces that I picked 9 or 10 that were Florida themed. A lot of the Cypress shots that I have are actually from Texas, but realistically the shots just feel very Florida regardless. And the reason that I chose those wasn't necessarily because of our theme of seasons, it was just because that's where it's going to be. The people walking through the gallery all live in Florida. So if I wanted to sell a piece or catch the eyes of people around, they're gonna wanna see things that represent Florida. They're not gonna wanna see some big grandiose image all over the walls that they don't know the location and they don't really resonate with. However, I didn't want to just fill the gallery with only Florida style shots, so I broke it into about 9 or 10 pieces of Florida or Florida related scenery, and then 8 pieces-ish of different spots around the world that meant something to me. Some of those were from Colorado, some of those were definitely more of those fantasy style images that I love, just to kind of get people's attention in the gallery. I thought that was a good mixture, and it kind of, the way the gallery was spaced out is there's a lot of spots for just one piece of work or maybe 2 pieces of work, so you could kind of have those singular themes all in one area, which is what ended up happening. Now, the next question might be, how did I decide where everything went? I didn't. The way that it worked was we dropped off our artwork, and then the curators, or the person that I worked with, they picked out how everything went together and how it mingled together, because that's honestly what they're good at and not what I'm good at. So that's what they did. They took what we gave them, and they did an excellent job. So another question kind of ties into trying to sell that work. My prices and commission of doing a gallery, a lot of the times galleries or exhibitions charge a commission. So if you sell a piece, they charge a percentage. Thankfully, in this case, this whole initiative in Tallahassee, 𝐒𝐸, they don't take a commission. So anything that I sell just goes directly to me. So I priced mine, I think $400, $500, and $700 for different sizes. That's roughly where I want it to be because all of my prints were metal. And that's another question I got a lot of, was how did I decide on the medium? Now the reality is getting prints done and getting frames done is probably the most ideal, but considering how many pieces Wright and I were doing and the time constraints that we were trying to do them in and manage, also I'm working remote, so like I'm trying to figure out all this stuff and that the only thing that I'm gonna do is fly in, pick up my stuff and deliver it. So we chose to do all metal prints. Not only does this save time with having to figure out framing, it also makes it a little bit easier for transportation because whoever buys it, it's ready to go on the wall, it's ready to hang, they don't have to frame it, or they're not already paying for a frame that I decided on. The thing is, framing or choosing a frame for each individual print is a ton of work. You gotta figure out what kind of mats you want, what kind of material, and then having those all shipped or customly done, it can be quite expensive. So they end up costing more than just a metal print. The other beauty of a metal print was that there's cohesion throughout the whole gallery show. All of them are just the prints. There's no different frames that catch people's attention differently or distract from the artwork. Lastly, we didn't have any control over the lights in that particular area that I had scouted all the way back in the winter when I was back in Tallahassee. Has different lighting. So some of them have spotlights, but there's also a lot of natural light during the day, which is when anybody's gonna be in that gallery because it's only open from your typical hours of 8 to 5 at City Hall. So there's a lot of natural light coming in, and all of those factors can play into when you have a frame or anything like that. So what we decided on, or I decided on mostly, was to go metal, and I went matte white metal. So all my images besides one are matte white, and one I went semi-gloss, which is my Aurora shot from Norway. And that's how we decided on it. I would say that if I was running a smaller, more intimate gallery of my own work, that maybe I would take a lot more time to figure out the framing. But honestly, that just requires a lot more control. Not only would I be curating where every image goes, I would be curating the lighting on it, I would be curating all of the framing, and a lot of that I didn't really have the time to do. And I didn't have the time to work with someone else that was also trying to get a bunch of prints done and have everything come together and work together cohesively. So we just decided on metal. I still think it's a great medium, but I don't necessarily know if it's just the direct answer to always print on metal. I don't think that's correct either. I am really happy with how all the prints turned out. We went through all of the prints through New Mexico Fine Art Printers. I got this advice from Matt Payne. He did an entire thing on it. I printed quite a few metal prints from all different studios and stuff like that. And honestly, all of these were way better than anything I've ever gotten from anyone else. I've ordered from Bay Photo, I've ordered from Adorama, I've ordered from Pro DPI, and these were just a little bit better in some cases, but a lot better in terms of the way the prints looked on metal. It was as if I printed on paper and now they're on metal rather than kind of feeling like they're on metal. It's hard to describe unless you've done your own metal work, but all I can say is the quality was absolutely impeccable, and I will be ordering from them again. So thank you for your help in that if you guys end up watching this. Another question I got is, how do you know if your work is good enough for a gallery? I think the reality is if someone's coming to you to fill in space in a gallery, your work is probably good enough. That answers itself. But if you're coming from it in the sense of, I want to have a gallery show, how do I reach out to people and make sure that the work that I have is quality enough to be hosted in that gallery? I mean, it really can't hurt to just send out feelers. Reach out to some people, go to some gallery shows, learn how it works, and then reach out to them and say, hey, I would love to take up this wall space, or I would love to have an exhibition myself. Here's my work. How can we make it happen? A lot of the times, local places will host your art for pretty much nothing if they just want art on their walls. It doesn't necessarily have to be a gallery or exhibition. It could be a local restaurant. The caveat for those is you really have to be sure that the stuff you're putting on those walls resonates with the area that you're in. So I'm not going to put a bunch of Florida images in if I'm trying to get into, a restaurant in Maine or something like that. So be sure to be cognizant of that. And a lot of the times, shows and exhibitions and galleries like that are more about what the audience is going to be rather than what some of your favorite images are. I think that's really important. It's something that I tried to follow in this particular exhibition myself, because I knew that people walking through were going to resonate better with some random stadium shot I have for my hometown than they would some Aurora shot that, from a photography standpoint, from a technical standpoint, is up and beyond better overall, but they're going to resonate more with a simpler, less technical image just because of the location. So just remember that you are catering towards an audience, especially if you're trying to sell your work. If the idea is you just want to show off and just have people ogle at the majesty of your images, well then print whatever you want. But if you are trying to sell some of your images, make sure that you are thinking about the audience that you are selling to. All right, so the last question I had was about lighting. I pretty much already answered that. We did not have control over the lighting, and there was just a lot of natural light in that area in City Hall in Tallahassee. And the other reality that I didn't talk about or answer here is how much I spent of my own money to get these prints done. After all is said and done, it was around $4,000 to print all of these. And for everything that I don't sell, I have to figure out how to recoup that cost or try to sell the work at maybe a discount. I'm not entirely sure, because then I also have to figure out where the heck I'm going to store it. But those are the things to think about, is that for photographers, you have to go out of your way to have prints made and framed, whereas a lot of other artists, the art is already created, whether it's an oil painting, a canvas, a pencil, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're making the art and then just putting it in the gallery, whereas for photography, we've already made the images, we just have to decide what we want to print, and that's where a lot of the cost comes from at this point. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you are going to have to front load a lot of costs. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend an 18-piece exhibition for anything that you're starting out with. I think the first couple that I did, just for some local things, were like 3 to 5 pieces. And I think that's really nice, because if you don't sell anything, it's not hard to store those, but also you can just take them with you, put them on your own wall or something like that. Anyways, I hope this answered your questions. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, you can like the video if you liked it. Consider subscribing if you loved it. And there's a lot of great content coming up, because you don't even know where this is yet. Anyways, there's got to be a rainbow out there somewhere. Just got to go find it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Later. Okay, so I've walked a little further out. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to finish this, because a lot of the times when the sun starts to go down, the mosquitoes just get worse and worse. And apparently it just doesn't matter if I'm in Florida or if I'm in Nova Scotia. They're just awful. And I cannot wait for it to cool down enough to where I don't have to worry about them. Anyways, people ask...